All right, everybody. Thank you so much for joining our, this week is our Health Industries Week, where we are inviting alumni to come back to campus through Zoom and tell us a little bit about their career journey and pathway and sharing information with our students. This is the first year that we are doing one focused specifically for pre-health, so I am excited to be kicking that off this year. My name is Ashley Foley. I am the new Director of Pre-Health Advising here at the university. We are recording today's panel and it will be available on our YouTube channel, which I'm going to share in the chat so everybody can have access to that after today. So we are joined today by a mix of newly admitted alumni to multiple health professional programs. And we also have some alum that have been in their program for a number of years. So really excited to hear different perspectives from our alumni here. And the goal today is to ask some questions that will help guide you in your decision-making process in whatever path that you take within your health professional career. So let's get started. So what we can start off with is some introductions, brief introductions. So we have our 5 panelists here today. If you wouldn't mind going to talk a little bit more about yourself, your pre-health track, maybe a little bit about where you applied or you're attending, where you are now, any information that you want to share in your brief introduction, we would love to hear from that. So Sarah, why don't I have you start?
Hi, thank you. My name is Sarah Nagash. I'm currently a senior at URI. My major is kinesiology, but I am on the dental track. I applied, yay. I applied to about 13 different schools, and ultimately I chose to go to Tufts University. So I'm very excited and blessed for that opportunity. Yes.
Thanks, Sarah. I'll hand it over to you, Julia.
Yes, hi, I'm Julia. I graduated in May 2024, so almost a year ago now. I was a double major in cell molecular biology and psychology. I am just wrapping up my gap year and applied to 41 different schools this past cycle, MD and DO. And I've made my decision to attend Philadelphia College of Osteopathic Medicine.
41, Julia, that's incredible. Thanks so much for sharing. Joe, I'll hand it over to you.
Sure. I'm the older person of the group. I graduated in 2014 from URI in cell and molecular bio. I took 6 years off between med school and undergrad, working in research and as an EMT. And then I also decided to go to med school in Philly and went to Drexel starting in 2020. And I applied to, I believe, around 40 schools, both MD and DO at the time.
Wow. Joe, what a time to start med school.
Yeah, it was definitely in, yeah.
Thanks, Joe. Allie, I'll have you jump in.
Hi, everybody. I'm Allie. I graduated URI in 2023 with a human development major and cell and molecular biology minor. I applied to 15 PA schools, and I'm starting in September at the Mass College of Pharmacy.
Wonderful. Thanks, Allie. And last but not least, Matt, if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself.
Hi, great to meet everyone. My name is Matt. I graduated from URI in 2019. I changed my major about halfway through my time at URI, so I sort of had a untraditional path just in terms of getting into the pre-health profession in the first place. And then I took about 3 gap years, during which, sort of like Joe, I also spent time as an EMT, did some time doing clinical research in Rhode Island at Rhode Island Hospital in Brown. And currently I'm starting my 3rd year of med school this coming week.
Congrats, Matt. All right, so Matt, while I have you, would you mind answering our first question here? And then we can kind of like bounce it around depending on how we want to answer this. But what do you feel like, Matt, made you a competitive applicant? And particularly for Brown?
Yeah, great question. I think it's admittedly a little bit tough to pinpoint a single thing because behind the application committee, you're never 100% sure what they're looking for, and things vary institution to institution. But I think sort of generally, taking gap years between graduating college and ultimately going to med school definitely helped me out a lot. And I'm not sure that it was a single thing that really made me stand out, but potentially because I had sort of a variety of experiences. Again, sort of like Joe mentioned, I had some EMT experience, which was patient facing, so a lot of experience dealing with patients and thinking medically and clinically. And then I was able to supplement that and really complement it with having some research experience. I think as it pertains to Brown, it definitely was helpful that the research that I was doing was in the Rhode Island hospital system. So I sort of got accustomed to some of the professors and how things worked here. But I think what really brought it together was when it came time to put together the application, being able to very cohesively demonstrate how you had these separate experiences, but they really nuanced one another and complemented one another, and showing that everything really was part of a narrative as opposed to just single check boxes. I think that is really probably what made me stand out a little bit, and I definitely got a lot of questions about that in my interviews for some feedback. So I guess just not to cop out the question, but sort of to say a little bit of everything is what made me stand out. But I think it's really how you put it all together and express yourself when you're talking to these people in the application committee.
Well, no, Matt, I really appreciate that answer, because this is a question that we get very often is what should I be doing in order to get into med school? And there's a couple of thought processes around that, but it's really, the goal is not to get to med school, it's to get through med school. So how can you do all of the things to be as competitive as possible and decide to do the things that you are passionate about and interested about that will make you stand out in your own way in your application. But that comes better from somebody doing it for sure. So I appreciate you speaking to that piece. Allie, do you mind answering that question from the PA perspective?
Yeah, so just bouncing off what was just said, pretty much variety, variety, variety. I worked as a scribe for Brown Emergency Medicine for a while, like a year or so, I think. And then I switched to a medical assistant in dermatology. So as a scribe, I was writing more notes and just really becoming accustomed to the ways of the ER. And I met a ton of really great doctors and PAs, and just the networking was fantastic there. But I knew that I needed more hands-on experience as well. So since you need 2,000 hours of patient care minimum pretty much to apply to PA school, um, I had gone into medical assisting, and I did that for over a year as well. And I just learned different skills, I would say. So I think I talked a lot about that in my applications and in my interviews, just having a variety of skills and experiences in different patient populations and hospital versus outpatient, I think really important.
Allie, do you mind sharing, did you have to get your medical assistant certification in order to practice to be a medical assistant?
No,
Ah,
it
okay.
varies. I found the job on Indeed,
Awesome.
and yeah, I got a few interviews for medical assistant jobs without having a certification.
Fantastic. We love to hear it.
Yeah.
Sarah, do you mind answering? What do you feel like made you a competitive applicant?
Yeah, sure. I think they touched on pretty much what I was gonna say, but definitely just being a very well-rounded applicant is important. I was a research fellow, and I had a lot of shadowing hours. They like to see experiences in different clinics, so you can have different populations, whether that's a pediatric dental office, a general dental office, so orthodontics. So just experience in different clinics. I think one of the biggest things I did a mission trip to Ocracoke Island, and it was a dental bus, and they have multiple dental buses that go to different places. My dental bus just ended up going to Ocracoke Island, but that was an extreme experience because you have firsthand experience of serving the underserved. So you can talk about that, and that makes you a better applicant just because you have the firsthand experience of that. It's easier to say that I did it rather than just talk about, oh, if I had the opportunity. Um, and also they like to see longer commitments to certain things that are outside of doing things for the application. So I had a lot of volunteer hours at my church as a Sunday school teacher. I was also an RA. So things that are important to you, a lot of hobbies. They just like to see that you're a person outside of your application and that you're committed to that as well.
Thanks, Sarah. What a cool experience. Julia, do you mind sharing?
Yes, sorry, I have to swipe the screen. So kind of everyone sort of talked about variety, right? And what it is to really have different experiences. And I know for a lot of MD pursuing students and DO pursuing students, the whole idea is like, oh, in order to be competitive, my MCAT has to be above a 512. It has to be above a 510. And I'm just here to say, like, yeah, like, okay, yeah, it's one way to make yourself competitive, but there's so many different ways. Like, to be totally transparent, my MCAT was a 506. Is it terrible? No. Is it something that's like, oh my God, is it so great? No. Like, it's one of those scores that are like, okay, you did well enough to go. And I think really what set me apart from my application wasn't my MCAT score. So the MCAT isn't the end all be all. And what set me apart was actually my interviewing skills and the way that I engaged with my interviewers and talked about my experiences. Having detailed stories and being passionate about what it is you're really talking about in your interviews, I think is something that can really make you a competitive applicant. And the way you can talk about all those things and have stories is by having a variety of experiences. For instance, like I love art, so I do photography. I've taught photography and taught swimming and like played cello. So just different things that really fulfill you. And sort of like Sarah, I went on a medical missions trip and did hip and knee replacements in Honduras. And that was something else that really came up a lot in my interviews and talking about service. So yeah, sort of saying what everyone else says, but that truly focusing on that interview, I think, is what sets you apart as an applicant.
Thanks, Julia. And Joe, what do you think?
Just piggybacking on everyone, variety is great. Definitely be passionate about something. And I also think it's really important to get clinical experience, not only to cross the checkbox on your application, but to see for yourself if this is something you really want to do.
Yeah.
And one of the things for me was I actually applied in 2018, had one interview, but was not accepted, and then reapplied. And the one of the things I did was I became an EMT, and I was really more thoroughly able to answer the question of why I want to do medicine. Because when I was an EMT, it's like, oh my goodness, like I can't see myself doing anything other than healthcare. Even if it's not medical school, then I could see myself doing something else in medicine or healthcare. So I think it's really vital to get that experience clinically to actually be seeing patients.
And Joe, while I have you, do you feel like that experience as an EMT was most valuable for you because of the patient care, or was it something different that you did that was most valuable?
I think it was most valuable because of that patient care. And one of the cool things about being an EMT is that you're a provider in the sense of while you can't prescribe your patient's many drugs, but let's say someone's having a suspected heart attack, you can give them aspirin, or if they're having asthma, you can give them medication for that. So it's really cool because you kind of like what Matt was saying, you're doing that clinical decision making. And I remember being an EMT, and at the time I was also working in research. I was doing EMS on the weekends. I remember when I was in my research shifts, I remember I can't wait for the weekend to be on the truck and being taking care of patients.
That's so great.
I'd love to add just one more thing that he made me think of. I think also what sets yourself apart as an applicant is if in your personal statement, if you can truly answer your why medicine and have
Mhm.
a deep rooted story that demonstrates why, really truly why medicine for you specifically, and almost on a personal level too. I think that's another quality.
Actually, the personal statement is one of the things that I was hoping to address today, Julia. So is there anything else that you wanted to add to that? If we want to kind of switch over to personal statements as a part of the application, I know it's a cause of stress for many students.
Yeah. Think about this. Like, there's how many applications that they see. I mean, one school
Right.
maybe sees like 10,000 to 14,000 applications per cycle. And it's like, what is truly going to make yours different? How can you stand out, right? And I think for me, I focused on the stories that made me me and the things that shaped me into the person who I was and demonstrating to the committee, okay, this is who I am and this is how medicine fits in with who I am. And
Mhm.
I think also starting with this the story and like telling the story is very important as well because it serves as a almost like a hook into your personal statement. You know, I started with a moment when I was volunteering in the emergency room that really kind of shook me to my core. And I think it's one of those things that can draw readers in. It is a piece of writing, so you have to use your writing skills too to work that all in. So again, I think it's important to answer your why medicine, demonstrate who you are, and have a story that is somewhat captivating to your readers.
Thanks, Julia. Matt, do you have anything to add there about personal statements and any advice you might give there?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that what Julia emphasized really was spot on. And when I sort of talk about this with other students that I talk to as well, I think there's really like two main points that I try to stick. And one of them is pretty much what Julia said, where, you know, make sure that you are answering that question. Because honestly, the question, you know, I think maybe it depends on exactly what pre-health profession that you're trying to go to. But, you know, it's like, why do you want to go into medicine? You know, that is insanely broad. It's impossible to answer in 5,300 characters, yet we're tasked with doing just that. And I think it's very easy to, you know, sort of get too narrow or too focused in like talking about, you know, your first exposure to medicine, or talking too much about an activity that you did, you know, to prepare yourself for a career in medicine. Because there's such amazing things, especially, you know, you've done so many things up to that point. How can you not talk so much about them? But I think really trying to make sure that you are, you know, moving through the essay and answering very clearly and demonstrating to them that you know what medicine is, and two, that you're sure that you want to go into it. I think that is an easy common pitfall that a lot of essays probably fall into. But if you can answer that question at least properly and, you know, demonstrate things cohesively, that is really going to set you apart. Again, you know, so many people are EMTs, so many people do research, but your, you know, unique experience is something that cannot be replicated. So that's what, if you can make stand out, that will be very favorable for you. And then two, I'd say, you know, at least personally, when I started writing my personal statement and other things too, you know, I sort of felt very private about it. I was like, you know, this is my personal statement. You know, I don't want to, you know, share my vulnerability with all these people and talk about these things, but, you know, it really is essential to, you know, you don't need to send it to 1,000 people, but, you know, find a cohort of like, you know, 5 people that you trust, maybe from diverse backgrounds, or that know you very well as a person, that can even speak to your strengths that maybe you're not aware of as you're writing. And, you know, really embrace their feedback. Don't be afraid to, you know, have them X out lines or tell you that you can cut out things, or that you should add other things too, because it really is, you know, it takes, when you focus on something for hours and hours and hours, you can really sort of get lost in it. So I think that, you know, accepting help and, you know, being open with Ashley or your other advisors or your close peers, people that you trust, that will really maximize the potential of your essay. And I think is very vital to ensuring that you're delivering something that is, you know, truly descriptive of you.
Thanks, Matt. That's really helpful. I want to make sure that I include for our current students that we have an incredible resource here on campus in case we're not familiar with our writing center here on campus, that are a group of experts that can really share with you and sit with you to brainstorm topics, give you a guide, help you work through an outline, tie your story together. They are incredible resources. Speaking of all of these experiences that you're gaining, I'd love to pivot a little bit into balancing all of this. So all of our students that know that they want to pursue medicine in whichever way, whether that's med school, PA school, dental school, PT, how did you balance all of this in your undergrad, maybe in your growth year or gap year after undergrad? But we talk a lot, we hear a lot about work-life balance. How did you handle all of those things? Allie, if you wouldn't mind, we'll start with you.
Yes, it's definitely not easy. I think that you just have to go into it knowing that you're going to have a different college experience than somebody who's maybe not going into medicine, and you have to just be okay with that. Um, but I would say it's definitely doable. I mean, I was lucky that I kind of knew coming into college that I wanted to go down this track. So I started right from, I would say freshman year, I was kind of getting used to everything, but sophomore year, I started doing all the extracurriculars, and I started shadowing sophomore year as well, just shadowing PAs, because I think that's also something that I want to tell you guys. Like, you have to go out and see if you actually want to do this. There's just no other way to know than to go shadow somebody with the job that you want. Try to do all different fields if you can, all different specialties. I mean, or like I shadowed doctors, I shadowed PAs, and I shadowed NPs, so I could kind of figure out exactly which route I wanted to go down. But so I would say start early if you can. If you can't, that's okay too. My gap year was fantastic because I was working full time and that was a whole new responsibility, but then also doing the application. I feel like I just got better at time management and really just locking in and planning things out hour by hour, even sometimes. Writing things down helped me, keeping a planner. But it's definitely doable. I was very nervous about that, balancing everything, but yeah, you can do it.
Allie, you talked a little bit about shadowing. How did you reach out to people?
Oh, so I was a waitress in a restaurant my summers off of college. I met a doctor there because he came in scrubs. And I just asked what he did in the medical field, and he ended up giving me a contact of a PA. So that's a huge thing too, is connections. Like if you see someone in scrubs, just ask them what they do. And who knows? I got my first shadowing from him. So it was fantastic. He was a customer at the restaurant. And then I reached out to so many people, and some of them won't answer you. And like that's okay too. Most of them probably won't answer you. But the couple that do have friends who also are okay with shadowing. And so that's how I jumped around. Like I shadowed in Boston because a friend of a PA, it like, yeah, connections. But I didn't start with any medical connections, I would say. Like nobody in my family's in the medical field. And so it was hard for sure. And just people who you work with, the doctors and the PAs and whoever you work with will have friends who are in different specialties too that they can connect you with.
Thanks for that, Allie. That's really helpful.
Yeah.
Sarah, how about you? How did you balance all of this and still balancing as, an upcoming graduate?
Um, it's hard, but like Ali said, definitely doable. You just have to take it one day at a time. Um, Organizing a schedule, prioritizing certain things is very important. And at the same time, you just have to be okay with not, you can't do everything that you want as a college student, but that's okay because at the end of the day, hard work is going to pay off. I would say that there's a difference between working hard and burnout. So it's just important to not burn yourself out. You should find something that you like to do and let it be a self-care thing and prioritize that as well during your day. For me, it was going to the gym. So making sure at night I was always going to the gym was really important to me. But you have enough time to do what you need to do. Just take it one day at a time and you'll be okay. Um, but definitely making a schedule and prioritizing what you can do for the day and just being realistic with the time that you have, and just giving yourself grace. Maybe at the end of the day, you're not going to feel like there's always something else that you could do. So you're not going to feel like totally accomplished by the end of the day. But that's enough. And honestly, that's how you're going to feel. So just accept that, and just go on to the next day. At the end of the day, you'll be okay. So it's okay. It's hard, but just prioritize, make a schedule, keep everything organized, and everything will be all right.
Sarah, that's really helpful. Thinking about preparing for standardized tests. So, Julia, I'm going to kick this one over to you. How was it preparing for the MCAT exam? Any strategies that you want to share, best practices, what the experience was like, anything?
So if I have regrets with how I studied. So if I was to go back and do it again, I would do it differently than I did the first time. I spent too much time in content review at first and not enough time actually, believe me, I did a lot of practice. I took 8 practice exams before taking my real MCAT. So I did a lot of practice exams, but I don't feel as though I spent enough time every day doing enough questions in UWorld. So my 2 big things that I used for my study was Anki and UWorld. And the Anki cards every day was great because it was the spaced repetition, keeping everything fresh. And the UWorld was question practice. If I had to do it over again, I would actually just start doing UWorld questions right from the start with no content review and learn as you're doing the questions, because you learn better actually with questions because you've already seen the content at least once, right? Like through undergrad. So the information's there. It just needs to come back out and come to the front. So I'd practice with UWorld from the get-go and make Anki cards based on the topics I don't get right on the UWorld and prioritize those. Another tip for prepping for the MCAT is when you do take your practice exam, don't just like see the final score in AM and AMCAS and then like just move on. Don't move on from it. Go through the exam. Which questions did you get wrong? What kind of questions were they? And go through the questions and say, okay, I got this wrong because, and find the fact that you got wrong and make that into an Anki card. And keep practicing, going back through the ones that you do get incorrect. The other thing with studying is it's super easy to get burned out. I studied for 4 months straight, and the final 3 months of it was almost 8 hours a day. I probably studied like the wrong ways now, looking back at how much time I put into it, and the yield that it resulted in. But I would say focus on practice questions and Anki, and that should be pretty much all you need to do well on the exam. And if you really feel like you need content review, like if you're just like, I really don't remember my amino acids whatsoever, then go ahead, do a little bit of content review, but don't make it your big focus. And make sure you're scheduling time for breaks. I made the mistake the summer of my MCAT to also do 2 online courses while I was studying for my MCAT, which sometimes you just do what you have to do to get through. I mean, I was a double major, but again, if I had to go and do it over, I would literally do nothing that summer other than study for your MCAT. If you have the ability not to work, then take advantage of it and don't work, and don't take another class if you have that ability. Just focus on your MCAT and that prep and giving your brain rest. Sleeping at night, so important for learning. So yeah, that's my rant.
Julia, that's really helpful. I put some of those resources that you mentioned in the chat
Yeah.
for our participants if you're interested in using any of those resources that Julia had mentioned. Joe, do you mind sharing a little bit about your MCAT prep? And since you are a 4th year, I'm sure that you've seen similar exams while you're in med school. And I know that a lot of resources will tell us the MCAT is just the first exam of many that you'll see throughout your time in med school that is similar in style. So if you wouldn't mind sharing a little bit about your MCAT experience, but then maybe similar exams that you've seen in med school since then.
Yeah, of course. This is actually RAM because I technically have 3 graded MCAT scores. One which I don't really count was way back in the day. Like I was, I think, like a junior URI, and it was the old scoring system, so I don't even know what the score was, hard converts. But I basically studied for a month, took it, and pretty much bombed it. And then I took it again when I was applying before 2018, and I think at the time I scored a 507, but I had a lower CAR score. And then I took it again and got a 513. And the biggest thing I did was to piggyback off Julia's points. Practice questions are so key. That was how I did so many practice questions on the CAR section, and that really helped a lot to increase my score. And the one thing I want to stress to everyone in the room is and this might differ from person to person, but I'm a big believer that you trust your practice scores. And for me, sometimes I would take the MCAT, especially the first or second time, I'd be like, oh, I'll do better on the test. I'll score like 10 points high or whatever on the test. And it doesn't really work out that way. So my biggest piece of advice is never take a career defining exam unless you're happy with your practice exam scores. Um, in terms of study resources, back when I did it, they didn't have UWorld, but for the current exams, the step exams I take in medical school are complex. If you're in a DO program, definitely UWorld. The way that I study, and everyone has their study method that works for them, is I definitely concur that we should do as many practice questions as possible. In terms of Anki, I didn't use it for MCAP. I did use it for STEP and my shelf exams, and without it, I would have done a lot worse. So I'm definitely a big believer in Anki, and there's different ways to do it that I think is up to a person for their own style. Like for me, instead of using it for learning, I use it the way I use it is if I get an incorrect on, let's say I get a question mark on UWorld, I'll either try to find the card or make my own card and then study my incorrects. But it depends person to person. Yeah.
Thanks for that. Matt, anything that you might want to add about your experience with MCAT?
Yeah, honestly, both Joe and Julia, offer a great advice there. And sort of similarly, I took the MCAT 2 times. And as you were talking about, and you actually get into med school, your other pre-professional schools, and you are, taking the board exams again. I just took my first board exam like 3 weeks ago and felt like deja vu. This story keeps on happening over and over again. But the first time I took the MCAT, I scored a 507, which certainly was not a bad score by any means whatsoever. But I felt as though my approach to how I was studying certainly could have been improved. And so I did buckle down to prepare for it and take it a second time, and ended up doing much better. And I got 516 the second time. And the biggest differences between the first and second, undoubtedly were the split, just like the previous what people were talking about, is between the content review and actual active practice. The first time I spent so much time doing content review, and I probably read every single page of the Kaplan book series that there is, and I certainly forgot exactly what I read one page after I had just read it, and it didn't help, and it showed. But then the second time around, I almost flipped my approach entirely, and I was probably doing 85% practice questions, 15% content review, and only doing content review of the stuff that I really realized that I needed to spend more time on, because especially if you're using resources like UWorld or the other similar question banks, oftentimes the feedback that you get on each question is enough to sort of fill in those patches of where you're missing certain bits of content. And then when it's great preparation for that next phase after too, because when you are in med school or you're in your other pre-professional schools, those practice questions and those Q banks, those are exactly how you're going to study for, the next 4 years after that, possibly even longer. So I think the earlier that you become comfortable with them, you're certainly setting yourself up for the MCAT, but it will truly improve your performance even further when, we make a career out of taking these sort of tests. So definitely would just emphasize doing practice questions, trusting your practice scores, like Joe had said as well, and trusting your gut. Don't change your answers after you put them down if you don't know something.
Thanks, Matt. Sarah, do you want to share from the DAT perspective for our dental students in the room?
Yeah, so for the DAT, a lot of what they said transfers over. I use DAT Bootcamp to study. I definitely think that you should get one of those applications to study. There's DAT Bootcamp, there's DAT Booster. You have to pay some money for it, so definitely you have to organize your finances beforehand, just to make sure that you're aware of the cost of everything. But like they said, trusting your exam scores is very important for for your practice exam. Trusting your practice exams is important. Also, I took the DAT twice. The first time around, I was in my semester, so I had like 17 credits, and I tried to study outside of, my school obligations and stuff. I was in the middle of taking Orgo 2. So the first exam just didn't go well. I think I was very exhausted and burnt out, even though I knew the content. It actually, by the time the exam day came, I was very anxious and just worried and just stressed out and tired that I got lower than what my practice scores was. So that just shows you that also taking sleep seriously, making sure you're taking care of your body and making sure that you're mentally, ready, replenished, and alert is important for your exam score. It's not just studying until you're burnt out. You have to make sure that you're taking care of yourself so that you can, perform the way that you expected. The second time that I took my DAT, the semester had finished, so I took that month and I completely just focused on taking my exam, and I did a lot more practice questions. Half the battle is just learning how to take the exam. You know the content, but time management is very important. You need to just practice how to take a DAT. I think it's similar for an MCAT, but time management is a hard thing because they ask you a certain amount of questions in a certain amount of time. If you had all the time in the world to sit down and think, it would be much easier. But that's just not the case. So you just have to practice, take a bunch of practice exams, practice your time management skills, put a question answer down, and you can go back to it at the end if you have time, but put your gut feeling down and just move on. Don't linger too hard on certain questions. And yeah, like I think Julia had mentioned it, it's better to just focus if you have a job and you can take time off. Like I said, I was in the middle of my semester. It was just too much going on. I had a lot happening in my brain trying to balance a lot of classes at once. If you could just dedicate the time, it's super important. The 1 month difference that I took my DAT the second time, it was a 1 month difference, and my exam score went up like 5 points. So it's not that I didn't know the stuff, but it's more so like taking care of yourself, making sure that you're sleeping and you're, going to the gym or whatever it is that you do, making sure you're taking care of your body. And also just giving yourself the time and the space to just calmly study is really important.
Thanks,
Yeah.
Sarah. Transitioning a little bit, Allie, do you mind sharing? Many of you have touched upon the gap, or as I like to call it, the growth year. Do you mind talking a little bit about your experience with that, Allie, and maybe why you feel like that was instrumental in when you were applying for PA programs, or what were you doing during that time as well? I think a lot of students are nervous about taking a gap year, and so I think that it's important to understand the benefits to it.
I think especially for PA school, it's like very necessary, just because of the patient care hours that you need. I mean, a lot of the schools will say like 500 or 600 or something, but really, I've found through all my research that it's been really 2,000 has been the like magic number that you want to get to apply to PA school. Um, so I worked full-time as a medical assistant in dermatology. It was a fantastic experience. I did lots of hands-on. The doctor that I worked with taught me a lot, and she wanted me to do a lot of hands-on procedures with her and assisting her. So I really learned how to talk to patients. I learned patient care really all around, but I also learned how an outpatient clinic works. And I learned about all the hours, and I did a lot of overtime, which could be stressful. And I could see that, work-life balance is hard as somebody in the medical field, but I definitely learned a lot from the doctor that I worked with, which was great. And then really, so you apply to PA school. I think the application comes out in April. So I think end of
Happening April
January.
24th.
There we go. So end of January, I was getting ready. Like I started thinking about my personal statement, which I also wanted to say it's okay if you don't have like one defining story that's like, this is what happened. I met this amazing PA and now I'm going into medicine. Like it's okay. You don't have to make it up. If you want to go into medicine for other reasons, like that's okay too. I felt a lot of pressure to have one single story that was just fantastic. And I feel like I didn't have that. So I just with people that have edited my personal statement and stuff, they just said, it's okay if you don't have one interaction, you know? So I wanted to tell all you guys that too. Like, it's not like everybody's going to meet this one person that changes their life. But just working on the application and working patient care hours and shadowing a lot and doing research. Just, yeah, I think the gap year is very beneficial because you do have a lot to do.
Yeah. Thanks, Allie. Julia, do you want to touch upon your gap year? I know that that was really beneficial for you.
Yes, I'd love to talk about my gap year. So like I mentioned, I applied to a lot of schools and was fortunate enough to have a lot of interviews come in, and getting ready for those interviews, taking those interviews, having the time of the day to do those interviews. It takes up a lot. I mean, it's almost like you have to be at the ready to interview when you finally get the interviews, because medical school is a rolling admission basis. It is optimal to choose the soonest interview that you can possibly get. So it means making yourself relatively available. I did not work a quote unquote full-time job during my gap year. I have my own tutoring business that I run. So I tutor on the side, and that allowed me the flexibility. I also work at an art gallery, which allows me to be flexible. So to still being able to make money, but have flexibility in that as well. I will mention during your gap year, you hit your submission on your secondaries maybe in August, early September, if you get burned out in August like I did. um, and then you're not done. You have to keep updating your schools. I did 2 rounds of update letters, which got sent out to all of my schools. It's important to not only upload it into the application portals, but also send them to the admissions people directly. They can start to get to know your name on a personal level if you're the one emailing and following up and inquiring and saying, hey, I'm interested in your school because of this. Make things personalized. Even though I applied to so many schools, I still took the time to personalize my update letters. Even if it's just my update letter, I usually took the last 3 sentences to personalize it to that particular school and be like, and because of my interest in teaching, I can really see myself at UPenn or Penn State or wherever it is you apply because of their particular teaching program, and make it specific to that school to show them, hey, I have a genuine interest in your school, and these are the reasons why I'm genuinely interested in your school. And then there's some schools, like a lot of the DO schools are like this, they only offer in-person interviews. So, again, that's traveling. Now, again, like I was fortunate enough to have my own tutoring thing that allowed me to be flexible. So I did travel for a lot of my interviews. And of course, it's finding ways to be, travel and maybe still have some fun along the way, but then not break the bank all at the same time. So I was in Florida, I was in Virginia, I went down to North Carolina, and finding people to stay with down there to kind of make it all happen. So honestly, I had a lot of fun, but I also worked really hard on my during my gap year too, doing my tutoring, doing my update letters, and it was a good time. So, and I also just want to mention this for anyone that has health concerns going into medical school. For instance, I had 3 spine surgeries during my college career, which was a big contributor to my interest in medicine, but it's something that I have to deal with on a daily basis. Taking your gap year to fortify your mind and your body before starting is super important. It's another reason why I chose not to work full time, because I didn't want to be putting that extra stress mentally and physically on my body after just having, worked so hard over a 5-year undergrad career and worked so hard all summer working on secondary essays to then work full time. So again, it's this balance of prioritizing, okay, your physical health, your mental health, and your academic health as well. So that's my gap year.
Thank you, Julia. That was so wonderful. While we still have, I want to leave a little bit of time for questions and answers at the end. So I'm hoping to talk to our 2 panelists who are within their health professions and either close to the end of their journey, midway through. So thinking about your transition, Joe and Matt, from undergrad here at URI and into your current programs, how did that transition go? And what was the biggest adjustment that you had to make? Joe, I'll have you go first.
Sure. So for me, I was 6 years out of undergrad when I started med school, and I was definitely very rusty. I kind of forgot how to be a student in a way. Um, for example, I remember I'm like, oh, I'll just like use Anki to learn everything because that's what I see everyone else doing, not realizing like, wait a minute, like I even used a little Anki when I was an undergrad, but it was always you learn the stuff first, then use Anki for um, to make sure it sticks in your head. So I think for me, it's knowing your study methods. I started getting better grades in my first year of med school when I realized I went back to my roots. For example, for me, that was watching the lectures, taking notes by hand. And the biggest thing too, I think, is, and not just for the transition to medical school, but in a lot of ways, is if things aren't going your way, I would definitely suggest asking for help, and no matter what that is. For me, I really should have been speaking with my academic affairs and the tutors that our med school provides. And because what would happen for me is I'd take an exam, let's say get like a 75 and feel like crap, like, oh, I'm so stupid. The average is a 90 and I have like a 75 or whatever. When instead of doing that, I should have been like, oh, let me go ask my academic affairs advisors and tutors, what can I change my study methods?
Thanks, Joe.
Yeah, just to go off of what Joe said, that was all really great, and I agree with all of it, honestly. I think the biggest thing for me was sort of like him as well, since I had taken about 3 gap years, working, relatively like a 9 to 5, more consistent job in those gap years. My biggest fear was that, like he said, I've been out of school for, X amount of years. How am I gonna, relearn to be a student, especially among, all these other, students who are coming straight out of undergrad, and they're still fresh and they're still on top of things. I was afraid about relearning how to do that, all that stuff. But it turned out, I think, that it actually um, ended up being a strength of mine. The fact that I had gotten used to sort of a 9 to 5 type of layout for your day, and getting used to constantly having things to do. Because honestly, I think one of the biggest differences between med school and undergrad, and other types of schools that you go to, is they always liken the analogy of, every day you're going to be served two pancakes. You can choose to eat both pancakes if you want to that given day. You don't necessarily need to, but if you don't, then you're going to have four pancakes the next day, and there's always another pancake coming. So I think sort of getting used to that like constant stream. They say, it's like drinking from a fire hose, which is different from undergrad, where you can sort of get by. At least, I was able to get by sometimes pulling an all-nighter the night before test and, getting by just fine. That doesn't really fly at the next level. For some people it does, and they're the most annoying people that can do that, but I can't do that. But I think by getting used to a habit and by having some resemblance of a work-life balance and being able to, put in, 10 hours and then take care of other things afterward, I think that is actually, one of the biggest things I had to get used to, but then I realized that it was actually very helpful for me. Yeah, that was the main thing I was going to say.
Thanks, Matt.
Yeah.
Last thing that I want to ask all of you, and this can be rapid fire, we can go down the line, but what is one thing that you wish somebody had told you while you were a pre-health student at URI? And Sarah, I'll start with you since you are still a student, but is there something when you started this journey that you wish somebody had told you?
Yeah, I mean, I think when I first started the journey, it was all about stats and you have to get this score, you have to get this score, and everybody around me was kind of talking about, oh, if we had somebody come, excuse me, if we had somebody come in and or a dental student come in, it was all about like, what do you get on your DAT? And that was really stressful for me. And I wish somebody told me that stats, they're important for you to get, an average that a school, wants, but at the same time, they're not everything. You don't have to get a 30 on your DAT. I think they changed the way they score, but for me, I took it when it was like the 30s. But scores are not everything. It's a holistic review of your application. So just put yourself in the position that you have a lot to talk about in terms of what field you want to go in. Make sure that you can talk about the field and why you chose it. But stats are not everything. They're important. Do your best. But once you feel confident in something or in your stats, just apply with it and you'll be okay. And I think you need a lot of support for a process like this. It's tough to do this alone. If you have family that can support you, that's important. If you have friends that can support you, lean on somebody that you know, and maybe somebody that's going through the process as well, an advisor and things of that nature. Just, you can do it, be okay. It's okay. Get off Reddit, because I was on Reddit, and get off Reddit. Don't do it. But yes, that's not everything. It's a holistic process, so it's okay. You'll be okay.
Thanks, Sarah. Allie, what about you? Something that you wish somebody had told you?
I would just say just a big emphasis on shadowing, shadow. Wherever you can, don't be afraid to ask people in person if you see them. Just try to get as much experience in different specialties as you can, because it'll really make you a lot more motivated, I would say. Like, I would shadow these PAs and be like, oh my gosh, I love your job. This is amazing. I'm on the right track. Keep going, keep trying hard, because I want to get to that point. So I think that was just a really good motivator. So you guys should all do it.
Joe, how about you? Something that you wish you would have known or wish that somebody would have told you?
Honestly, a lot of the advice was really good. Sometimes I was given tough love when I needed it. For example, taking gap years or whatnot. It was just I would just say make sure that if you're going to take an MCAT or a similar test, like you're really happy with your practice scores before you take it, even means taking a year or two extra.
Julia, how about you?
So for me, I would say that your undergrad career, in the sense of like what courses you take and how long it takes you to do your undergrad career and what that journey is for you, is not as important as you think it is. For instance, like I took 5 years to get through my undergrad career because of my surgeries, and took classes at 6 different schools, which was difficult to get all those transcripts together. But I was always so worried, oh, what's it going to look like when I apply to medical school? No one's going to want me when I go to medical school because of all these transcripts. To be honest with you, I didn't get asked about my majors. I didn't get asked about why I had 6 transcripts in any of my interviews. And it was honestly kind of shocking to me that I didn't. But at the same time, it highlighted that they're truly more interested in what avenues outside of undergrad made you those things, your extracurriculars, your all of those sorts of things.
Thanks, Julia. And Matt, something you wish you had known or somebody should have told you?
Yeah. Something I was definitely told, but that I do want to emphasize is listen to your advisors, trust your advisors. You know, they have seen this happen before. They know what's going on, although it's novel to you, and it certainly is overwhelming to sort of go through this process on your own. So certainly checking in, being honest, and receiving feedback from your advisors is integral to having success. And two, I remember when I switched my major my second year of school, I switched from political science to molecular biology, which is about as polar opposite as one can get, I think. But I remember being very anxious in that time period because I felt very behind. And I was like, I've done all this stuff leading up to here. I don't have any research experience. I don't have any, medical experience or anything like that. How am I going to compare with these people that are, have already been on this track, maybe even before college in some instances. And then when it got time, by the time that I was able to make up for some of those things, but by the time I got to the point where I was putting together my application and having interviews with people, I put things that had nothing to do with medicine in my application. For example, I worked security for 4 years, and that was sort of my job that I did during the summers and throughout school for over those 4 years. And I included it as an activity. I was like, I put a lot of time into it. Let me just put it down there. I doubt that it really means anything, but I need one more activity to hit my number there. And surprisingly, like it came up a lot in my interviews. People were asking me about security and things that had nothing to do with medicine. People were just interested in random things, which I think really goes on to say that it seems like you need to be having all this research, you need to have all these hours, and you need to have all this other experience and whatnot. But really, people at the end of the day, they're interested in who you are as a person, and the things that you do, whether they're medical related or not, are what make you who you are. So I think sort of embracing that, and don't get down because you didn't get a clinical job that you wanted or you couldn't get into a lab that you wanted. As long as you're doing something and you're doing something that you're passionate about, and that you can speak to not just how you impact what you're doing, but how what you're doing impacts you in some way, that speaks volumes, and you never know when it might come up. So I think that finding some comfortability, easier said than done, but finding some comfortability in knowing that as long as you're doing something, it's the right thing, that I think can alleviate, some concern, and in the end pays off and distinguishes you.
Thanks, Matt. And thanks everybody for sharing your insights there. We have a few minutes left for our time together, and I'd love to open it up to our audience for questions that you might have from some of our amazing experts here that are joining us here today. Anything as it relates to any of the topics that we talked about, but anything that we didn't get the chance to get to. When we think about an hour in length, it tends to feel large, but then when you have these great conversations, the time goes by so quickly. So if you have a question, feel free to unmute or put it in the chat, and we will get those questions answered. See. Some questions. There aren't any coming through. I've always got a lot of questions. Allie, you had talked about how you felt like 2,000 hours was kind of the amount that you needed to hit for PA. And we're seeing on average for applicants, not just from URI, but across the board, that it's a little bit more close to 3,000 to 4,000 hours. Did you experience that at all in your interviews where you, individuals were looking for more than what you had or less than, or can you speak a little bit to that?
No, there was definitely a diverse amount of hours just around the board. Just having talked to different interviewees at the interviews, people had all different experiences, all different numbers, but I was very comfortable with being in I think I was like 2,500, 2,600 range, and that was like perfect for me. Felt very confident. And I also wanted to add that my job in dermatology and during my gap year, I was actually called a gap intern. So they knew that I was going to be going to a professional school and that I was in the middle of applying and all this stuff. So they gave me all the time off that I needed, because that was like part of being a gap intern, was being able to get all your interviews off and I definitely recommend it. So if you guys can find somewhere that has a gap job title, it was really perfect. I can also put my email in the chat if anybody's interested in working in dermatology, and because that job was perfect for a gap year.
That would be great. Allie, Joe had also put his email in for anybody that would like to collect our panelist information. And this goes Julia, Sarah, and Matt. If you are comfortable with doing that and you'd like to also share your information in the chat, you can feel free to do that. Julia, quick question for you. What made you decide DO versus MD?
Good question. It was one that I had to grapple with actually over the past year and trying to figure it out. For me, the biggest difference was I've done so much physical therapy just in my own healthcare, and I have an interest in more like the musculoskeletal system and how it all works. And OMM, osteopathic manipulative medicine, is really what sets a DO apart from an MD. And I loved the approach of being able to actually see a patient. And then if let's say they come in, they have neck pain, right? I could then provide a manipulation to help relieve their neck pain, like right there in office. That, that way they're walking out already experiencing some sort of benefit from being under my care, as opposed to, okay, go to the pharmacy, pick up your medication, or try going to physical therapy. And it's something I can do right there in office to help treat a patient. And I really like that idea. The other reason that I'm going for DO is the DO philosophy is tripartite. It's mind, body, spirit. As someone who, my major was psychology. I am a Christian, and I love anatomy. It just seemed to be the right fit for me personally, because those three pillars are big in my own life, and I'd love for it to be a part of the profession I'm in as well.
Thanks, Julia. We do have University of New England's College of Osteopathic Medicine coming to campus. That's coming up next week. They're going to do an information session. So anybody that's interested or hadn't even considered DO as a potential path for them in the future, based on what we just learned from Julia, but also in your own research, I'm putting that in the chat for everybody. And they accepted 5 of our students last cycle. So they love URI. It's a great program to consider coming to that info session next week. Yay. Well, thank you for your time. Matt's at the hospital. Joe was just matched. Sarah's in the middle of senior year. Everybody's got something going on. So I am so grateful for your time, being able to come back and share your expertise with our current students that were in the seat that you were in at one point and are trying to hustle to do everything that they can to get to where they want to be. So thank you for your time. And appreciate it. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks for having us.
Thank
Pleasure talking to
you.
everyone.
Of course. Thanks, Matt.
Thanks,
Thank you.
guys.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye, Julia. Thank you. Bye, Joe. Thank you so much.